stop thinking and start doing. Stop thinking and start doing. Stop thinking and start doing. Stop thinking and start doing with me. Stop thinking and start doing it. Stop thinking and start doing it. Stop thinking and start doing it. Stop thinking and start doing with me.
So today's episode, we are going to be talking about intent and impact. And as I was preparing for this episode, one of the things that I was thinking of is it intent versus impact or intent and impact? And I really sat down with myself and like rewound the time sphere and went back to our first episode, right? The power of and the power of our intention and the power of our impact. So thinking about that, something that I felt regarding intention and impact is that when we do something, anything, there's always an intention and a reasoning behind why we do. And when the do is in process and when it's done, there is always an impact of that, which we have no control over. So really starting to think about and dissect the idea of we have intention, which we create and own and grow and foster. And out of that intention, we also have the power of that impact, which we have absolutely no control over. And thinking about how that shows up in our lives and what that looks like as we're all educators, what that looks like in the spaces of our classrooms or our offices, what that looks like in our lives and conversations with families and loved ones, what that looks like how we show up with friends, what that looks like potentially on the social media spheres. All of the things that we do and we think about have some sort of beautiful spiral, Jeremy Bearimy life out of it that we have no control over. And regardless of us having no control over that impact, it's still something that we have to own. And that idea is nauseating and beautiful and exhausting at times, and thinking about how it comes into all of our lives. So that's where I've been really spinning the wheels with intention and impact.
Yeah, that's interesting because I was looking at our notes and I kept seeing intent and impact. And I was like, no, it's versus. It's separate. It's like this versus this. And like, it was something that for me, I was struggling with. Like, I kept seeing it. I was like, why is this going on? And then you just opened up with first episode, the power of and we're going to discuss how it's both. I was like, yeah, that is what this is about. Oh God. That was so beautiful, Mary. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Got a little nervous to get started, but we're here. It's happening, guys.
Did amazing.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, I think the thing that was coming up for me is struggling with owning your impact and how you see that in so much, not only like yourself, but now that we're doing this work, seeing it in other people. And it's so wild to take that step and look at it in that perspective of being curious about it. And I think something that I have been talking about a lot is being curious and not judgmental. And that's just so interesting to think about when we get so upset at other people, at what they've done to us, right? Or said to us, and thinking about like, why did they say that? And thinking about, well, have they ever done the work on why they said that? And so many people are not doing this work with us, right? Examining and getting curious at your words or at your thoughts and at your, intentions.
Yeah, it has to start from within.
Yeah, and I think like how powerful if you start using this language with your family, with your children, with your spouse, with your coworkers, and like asking people like what was your what was your intention with that, and being honest of like, and here was your impact, and knowing that whatever you do back also will have an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And owning your past impacts, I think that's
Yeah, that's Alicia, that's a lot to get started. And as soon as you started talking, that was the first story that came to my mind, was connecting back to freshman year of college, right? So Cody and I have only been together for like, that's our first full year together, all these other things, and we had a disagreement. I remember it was the fall, it was my first semester, and we had some kind of disagreement. I don't remember what the disagreement was about, what that context was, but I remember that it was mainly something that I did, and that to me, I took ownership of it, and I was like, yep, well, I'm sorry that that's what I did. And then in my next breath, I was like, la-di-da-di-da, okay, so what's our plans for the weekend? Like just completely moved on. And Cody had to stop me and go, I'm not ready to move on. And I was like, wait, what? Like, but I apologized. But I apologize, and that's what I'm supposed to do. That's right, like,
and we move on.
And I moved on, and I was like, no, but like, what? That's all I needed to do. I did the right thing. What's the right thing? I did the right thing. And he's like, I appreciate your apology. However, I am still hurt. That, like, the apology doesn't take away, doesn't undo the hurt. And like, he's not holding it against me because of our conversation, right? Like, I was able to own it and whatnot, but that doesn't mean that in that next breath that he's ready to move on. And that was a big, like, that was over 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't remember the context of the disagreement, but I remember that happening, and that was the first time, I was 18, maybe 19, and that was the first time somebody said, well, it's not enough to just apologize. Because I was like, no, but that is right. I've read all the books. That's what I'm supposed to do. That's the right answer. And it wasn't, like that is, and there's more to it.
Yeah.
And you need to, like, either come up with solutions to this, how I'm going to handle it next time, or check in and say, okay, like, can we, do you need time? Do you need like time to think? Do you want to just continue talking? Do you want to do something? Like, check in, and just because you did apologize or say, well, it wasn't my intention to harm you, you need to get over yourself, or to hurt you, or whatever, and like, I'm owning my shit, and you need to get over it. That's not how it works. And it's really interesting as I'm talking this out loud that again, we went on that journey over a dozen years ago, and how differently we show up in our now marriage, of being so much more aware of, like, when we do something that upsets each other, and I'm like, I'm aware that wasn't your intention, however, this is still the impact, so this is what I need from you and for myself in this moment. And really, again, like you said, using that language, and how much it shifted how we communicate and how we're able to approach and move through times, disagreements or whatnot, especially when we go in it with good intentions.
Yeah.
I think something that is really interesting and beautiful when you're talking about the progression and the journey of like that original conversation, disagreement, kerfuffle between you and Cody a dozen years ago to conversations you guys have now, is one, of course, being able to say and literally use the language of, I know your intention was to bring up X, and the impact of that was this, and here's what I need. But I also think that really comes from a place of being able to like detach from what the implications, right, of what we're saying regarding intention and impact. I think sometimes people get so worked up and like, well, that's not what I meant. And then they get so heated up and defensive.
It all comes back to
right,
being
about
defensive.
what, well, I didn't mean that, right? I didn't, well, oh, no, it wasn't supposed to go like that. You weren't supposed to feel that, right? Which then becomes...
You weren't supposed to feel that.
Exactly, which then we could really dive deep into some structures and quote-unquote norms being created in society that have probably been bred and grown and watered into the, like, a terrible fuckery flower that, you know, continues. And that is and lane in an avenue that we are, you know, acknowledging and knows that harm is done in that way. And when we are able to say, that wasn't my intention, and I recognize that, and I take ownership for the pieces of my impact that have not, right? Yeah, and like gross, you know, but and I take ownership for the pieces that are mine, and I will do my work to move, right, from this, whether it's forwards, backwards, whatever, diagonal, blah, 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 but how that really comes from a place of being able to detach from that defensive part of ourselves that comes up, and from releasing that, like, not white knuckling on that piece of I have to control this.
Yeah.
Because really that impact,
is control.
like we talked about at the beginning, the impact is the thing that we don't control, is the life of its own. And I think what we can do as human beings is to speak and share our truth in all of its beauty and imperfections. And that is where the growth happens and where those tough conversations and things come up, so momentum is built.
Yeah. I think it's just really hard because so many people are conditioned to be defensive, right?
That
like,
kept coming up to me on my way here was, what are we going to talk about? And I'm like, it's all deconditioning. It's all what we're conditioned to do.
Yeah, because it's that it's
You know?
it's that you don't have the ability to respond and not react, right? Like that is being defensive, right? It's not letting the other person like, when you're defensive, you're just automatically shooting down and coming back at what is being sent to you. And it's so interesting because Derek and I had a conversation about this today, so
Yay!
Comes up when you need it.
Yeah.
Always.
But so letting it go, that like that you don't have to feel under attack. You can let these words just be words.
You're not under attack.
And be like, I don't have to react to this. I may not like what you're saying. I may be triggered by what you're saying. I may feel uncomfortable with what you're saying. I may disagree with what you're saying. I don't have to get defensive. I don't have to react. I can pause and breathe and think about, right? What is my impact then going to be? And that's hard because I feel like it's a whole nother layer of ownership of accepting what you're responsible for.
And Alicia, I think what you're talking about there too is, and changing the societal and generational story that we've all subscribed to without knowing. You know, when you unsubscribe from those emails and you're like, I never signed up for this in the first place. It's the same thing, right? I never signed up in the first place to, when someone says some words that feel a certain way to me, that I must get defensive. And pausing is the kindest thing to do, but is also, I think, one of the hardest, and one of the ones that the whole world doesn't provide any sort of acknowledgement of,
or even understand.
Yeah, I feel like you have to take use that moment of self-reflection. We're on the mirroring
and to reach
later.
out to the person to be like, I'm not being dismissive, this is just, and I think again,
Coming from a
using
place of
that
curiosity.
language, like, because I feel like that's what we're doing here is teaching these other people that we're having these conversations with, we are giving them permission to use this language for themselves, right? Like, if I'm having a difficult conversation and saying, like, you know, I need to pause this conversation, I'm not being dismissive, but what words we exchange matter, and there's going to be an impact, and I want the impact to be something that I have control over, not something that is just flying out of my mouth because I'm upset.
Yeah.
And I think using this language with, you know, your loved ones and the people around you, to give them permission to use this language for themselves, to understand that, because I feel like that's when change happens, is when you see it modeled to you and being like, oh, well, they just did that, so you know, I have permission to do that. I can express myself that way. I can, you know, ask to be held in this way.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting. So I'm recalling a moment where I feel like I have really been working on creating more mindfulness about intention and impact, and one day found myself in a lower emotional place and very emotionally reactive, and, you know, not how I wanted to show up. And I was saying some hurtful words with a loved one, and they said, I'm going to pause this conversation and we're going to take some space and we're going to come back to it tomorrow. And I was like, no. Like, I jumped back in. Absolutely not. What if we just did this? And they said, nothing good will come out of continuing this conversation right now. And I remember feeling, one, shocked that they weren't going to walk with me down this path of frustration, because I was like, well, I'm on the, like, you're right. We walk with each other. Like, you better come down this hiking road with me, right? Do it right now. And then also embarrassed, because I felt, oh, I've been doing this work a lot for myself. How did I, like, lose track? And then also proud that someone else could notice and step in. And then when I was able to detach, right, then I too was able to recognize, you know, this is a great choice and it's a hard choice. And I think when it gets mirrored back to us, right, and the mirror is it's like your mommy, whoa, right? But when the mirror comes back to us, when we think we're doing this work and we are embodying it and we're killing it and it's going well, when the mirror comes back and shows us, it's always at the times that we truly need it the most, whether we knew that or not. And it's also a tough, sometimes, pill to swallow. Like, there's always continual growth to happen and be done. But when this, especially for me, when this intention and impact of my words got reflected back to me after I thought I had done so much quote unquote positive work around it, I had to take a seat.
Yeah.
And then to follow up, there was an amazing, beautiful conversation the next day with this loved one, like, you know, and it was that pause was everything that was needed.
It's beautiful that you have that reflection too, that you can, like, have the space to hold yourself and see that in yourself and reflect on that.
And
reflection's happening now. Didn't happen then.
And that's okay too. It doesn't always have to be in that moment. And that's okay. But you know how to do that for yourself. And we can wish and hope and continue to model it and encourage others to do the same.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's where a lot of the changes that we'd like to see will happen.
For sure.
Is giving yourself that space, that non-judgmental space, that no shame game space, to reflect and say, oh, yep, I needed to take that step back. I was not right in that moment. I was not, you know, I was coming with my intention and I wasn't reflective of also my impact. Wow. Something that has been coming up, we keep saying, you know, the lack of control, right? You were saying that your intention and your impact can be about what your control is. And I feel like when we have those positive intentions of, you know, possibly our intention is to build that connection, is to, you know, again, foster connections that we are in, and control is masquerading as connection.
Excuse me?
when we show up to foster that connection with somebody, but what we're really doing is white knuckling, is
Oh my God.
digging your claws in to control it. It's just that control is there masquerading, pretending that it's that connection, because that's what our intention is. Our intention is connection, but our impact ends up being control. And and what happens, especially in moments of disagreements or elevated emotions, things like that, is that it turns into you start shutting down other people's emotions to fit it into the realm of your own comfort zone.
That fucking box that we
That
then
box!
put onto others.
That box that we are like,
Yo!
you need to fit into this box for my comfort. So I'm not understanding why you are doing what you're doing or you're saying and so on and so on. I know what I'm doing and you need to match what I'm doing. So I'm going to force you into this box. And if you don't fit into this box, we have an issue. And that's where it's more of that control, because you're controlling them into the box.
I'm not well.
And you're not actually
Nauseous.
building that bridge. You're not taking down those walls.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting up the walls around them to keep them where you want them.
Mm.
Huh. Okay, hold on. Whew.
Can we pause for a moment and talk about how you were feeling like, I don't have anything to say? Like,
And then she drops control masquerading
we're
as
just-
connection.
We're just gonna keep going. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah.
It's coming from
yeah,
the BB's latest book.
that
It's
damn
it's-
Dr. Brene Brown.
Brene Brown, Atlas of the Heart, y'all. It is real. Anyway. Yeah. So as soon as you guys were saying all these words, I'm like, wait, I know this, and that's what this is. And
You
then
know-
it just takes on a life of its own, as it does.
I think we've. I'm like not okay right now.
No, I've just been shaking my head. If you watch the recording on YouTube, I'm just like, for the past 4 minutes, just like
my
shaking
face
my head.
melted.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
whoa.
You went full turtle.
I did. Oh my gosh. I feel that control masquerading as connection really comes up more so in my personal life. But I also think that our work as educators, that this is something that we see around us with,
All the time.
right,
All the
with
time. Because we want
others,
that compliance.
right,
Mhm.
making connection.
Ugh.
Because when we're working with kids, we're clarifying, you're being motivating while also maybe challenging, right? By motivating students is the impact then challenging to them. And it causes, I think with us and other people that we know, we then become very mindful of our words and our actions and all of that, because we know how then that ripple effect starts with the conversations with ourselves and with our students and with others. I think it's something that we really see, which is people wanting to have connections, especially with kids, right? And we are in schools, and then it becomes control for the box, like how you said.
Mhm.
And that's something I'm really thinking of. And then what that does is then lead to really, in my opinion, unhealthy boundaries.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, for students as well as for those working on making connections with them, whether it's other students, whether it's adults in their lives, in the building, out of the building, however that looks like, because the world isn't just school. And
It's not. It always feels like it.
and really thinking of that.
You weren't looking, but you melted my face when you were saying that,
Did
because
you turtle? Are you feeling it?
I didn't. I just paused and jaw dropped, because, again, thinking back and reflecting on how this year is the hardest for educators across the board, and what's the thing that we keep getting told is build connections, build connections, build connections. That's always where they start, right? Is you need to build connections, and we know that, and that's something that we honor. But I feel like that has become that mask.
Yeah, build connection so you can manipulate.
Build connection. Exactly, and that's what it's become, because we don't want them to
Literally
be them.
an
We're not.
unhealthy relationship.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
go
and what are you
on.
It's that
modeling?
manipulation.
What is that modeling?
Oh,
that
God.
just makes me
The
nauseous.
control, the compliance, because we
Yeah,
want
because
kids to
it's-
come in to be compliant,
Yeah.
and the kids aren't. And that's where they're like, oh my gosh, like these kids are so wild this year, you know, this is ridiculous, something like that. And it's like, because you're digging in even harder, thinking that it's that connection, but it's really that control, that you're forcing them into that box to manipulate them.
And then
That went somewhere.
Right, and think about what the intention is, right? We can't know anybody else except ourselves because it's just the three of us right here. But a little thought experiment right now is think of what someone's intention is where that's happening. Oh, my intention is to connect with my students while maintaining good X scores on some nonsense test that someone else decided is important, but it's not. The impact of right, the impact of that is then demanding compliance, students not having voice and choice, educators going home more miserable than ever, and showing up more miserable than ever. And I don't know if I do know we as human beings are in a conscious state of recognizing that. So I feel like there are small pockets where people are like, wait, this is fucked up. We shouldn't be doing this, right? I think we're a pocket, which is awesome. But when we see it in others, it's so heartbreaking. Because maybe the intention, and this is all it. The intention was good, potentially, I don't know, not them. And the impact is detrimental. And the quote-unquote system facilitates and keeps the wheel moving on that detrimental impact.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then the ripples, right? And then Alicia, you say it, and I think I said it the last episode too, then people are hurt, and then hurt people, and it just is this one drop in the ocean, and the ripples are outrageous.
Oh, yeah, so many ripples.
Yeah.
And just what that, right, like the impact of one person's decisions, how that impacts the next person, and how if nobody in that ripple stops to say like, whoa, like, I'm adding as much hurt as the person adding hurt to me, like, and that again goes back to owning your, like, at what point do we step back and notice this ripple and be like, you know, no more for me. I don't contribute to this cycle.
The visualization that I just had is a picture that's been around for a little bit of matches in a row, and how when you're close enough in proximity, right, if one match is lit, it'll continue to light the ones next to it and the ones next to it and the one next to it. And you need to be the one to pull yourself away, to again detach. Oh, Mary. Oh, we're coming back.
Yeah.
So you need to detach to break that cycle, to break that ignition that is just engulfing everything that is going on, all that toxicity, because like you said, it was from one person's choice, and it's usually that one person's choice is so far removed, the intention, and then what is impacted is so far removed from that initial intention. Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Right? And there's a fear of owning impact because we as humans don't want to feel bad.
Yeah.
Right? We don't like the feeling.
You don't want to be the wrong one. You
exactly.
But
and how much growth and beauty happens when people step up and own, right, the impact. And at the same time, that's not the thing that's being modeled or seen, like we talked about earlier, because no one wants to feel bad. No one wants to be the disappointment. No one wants to admit that they aren't perfect. Like, gross, right? All of these things. So, and because that's not embraced and modeled and received and placed out there into the world, it's not a skill that's being taught. Because really, this can be something that is skill building, right? Owning and being aware of our intention and our impact is
executive functions.
Exactly, is skill building that we can have in our lives, and it's not something that is being taught globally, and really could make a huge fucking difference if it was.
Yeah. And if we raised our awareness for ourselves, and what that would be, like what you said, what that would be modeled back to others to then try out in their lives and be, you know, but I think it's so much of that fear of being, right? Like, I don't want to be the one that's wrong. I don't want to be the outcast. I don't want to be the one that's different. And it's like, why?
Again,
Why
because
don't you want to be the one that's... Because you're conditioned to think that different is bad.
Well, because we are biologically driven to exist in a communal society. So if we are seen as different, then we are seen as outcasted, and we are not welcomed in that society, in that community. And
Yeah,
that's where the fear...
but I challenge that to
for
say,
sure.
Your
Just
community
saying
is
that's
out
where
there.
it starts.
Yeah,
Ugh.
your community is out there. Don't settle at the one that you're in.
Yeah.
Just you'll find them. They're out there. They just might not be where you're at right now.
Mm-hmm. But the steps you're taking will lead you to them.
And the steps that they're taking will lead you to them.
Ugh. That's so much.
Yeah, my heart hurts.
Yeah.
Chest pain.
Yeah, we need to everyone needs to take a step back and a step apart. And I know that, especially during the pandemic and initial shutdown, that we were so far apart, right? We were physically so far apart. But I feel like there was such an emotional, true connection. Even though we were physically apart, we were able to take that step back, to have a moment of rest, to have a moment of breath, to look around and to recalibrate what choices we're making, what are intentions of our daily choices, right? What's your intention of getting up every day? You get up every day so you can go to work. Why do you go to work? So you can make money. Why do you make, you can, every single one of your choices you do that choice because that's your intention, and that you have a planned impact. And when's the last time we stopped and reflected on just those daily things, those daily choices that we have? But again, coming back to how right now we're so ignited negatively, and like what you're saying is like, challenge the system or challenge the negative impact, even though it's a positive intention, step up and do that. And I feel like that feeling of connection was so present in the beginning, and it'd be interesting I've got a lot of thoughts on this right now. So.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that may be swirling in your brain is how do we continue with that feeling of connection as we enter realms where we are more physically connected now as time has passed.
And it's not about shoving ourselves back into that box for we need to get back to normal, and I know the phrase, new normal definitely sucks, and that definitely isn't the vision that we want, but it's where should we have been all along?
Yeah. Well, no, I think so much of it is then testing of those boundaries, testing of those boxes that maybe during a time, and we're not minimizing, right, the terrible, very difficult impact, right, that came on with the pandemic, and that still continues with that. The thought that as a lot of people and collectives were really able to sit and determine their impact and intention and live in that, then as we enter spaces that were once very familiar and then we took a big pause from and now we're entering them again, it's testing our own boundaries in those cages and recognizing, okay, how can I show up as this self that I really loved a few weeks ago back into this space where no one might know me as this yet. And really, really thinking about that, and right, that's all of those different feelings and that, that difficulty and that awkwardness and what the pushback is going to be.
I think that's what the kids are doing. I think that's what students are doing right now, is that they are challenging.
Yeah.
They're showing up and being like, why is this what we're required to do?
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at the system being like, we're not going to do this anymore just because that's what you say. This is why? Literally, like, that's one of the biggest questions in school. Why are we learning this? And now it's like, we're not even getting to the why are we learning this, because it's more of, well, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to sit still at a desk in my own space, not interacting with others, silently working all day out of a book or staring at a screen, like there's so many things that they're like, no. And I am so empowered by their energy
Yeah.
more than discouraged.
And the choices that
I really hope that other adults, especially in education, can lean into that and recognize that it's coming from that it has the potential of coming from a place of challenging in a way of like, I know that you didn't set these rules, but why are you continuing these rules?
Yeah.
And really having that self-reflection and see, oh, why are we doing it like this? Just because it's the way it's always been done, that's not a good enough excuse.
Yeah, and what impact do you want to have now? Because now that you are aware, like, I feel like that is what we're saying is, like, you've raised this awareness, you've seen the positive feeling that comes with setting this impact, right? Like, setting this intention. And when you know that your impact is going to be something that sticks for so long, especially with kids, then you start to, like, you know, you really are aware of what you want them to walk away from you with.
Yeah. And I think we have a beautiful opportunity to work with kids because it can and does make us so aware of that. And if we as humanity, maybe that's a big ask, but asking it anyway, we're able to do that with each other, right? To do that with our loved ones, to do that with the people in our family. What a different society we would have the opportunity to engage in, to own it all.
And don't let your your intention of creating connections masquerade as control. You know, like, don't make choices for others that you think that you're doing it because it's what's best for them. You know, like, I resonate with that so much. Being
Sorry, I think that was a little hard. If you are not watching the video, I was lightly tapping Aaron on the shoulder.
It was great. No, but, like, you know, again, thinking about with kids, I remember being a kid and so many choices being made for me with the intention to protect you, and it's because I know what's best for you. And I feel like that minimalizes individual their souls, they're trusting themselves. I feel like that's why we as a generation are so
What's the right answer?
What's the right answer, right? Like, we don't have that self-trust because when we were younger, we weren't given that opportunity to have that self-trust. And so, you know, don't make choices for others thinking that it's what's best for them and building that connection when it's really just you keeping control of it. And that's something that for me I've had to really let go of, is the need to hold on to it. And it's just nauseating to now watch as other people make those same choices, and I'm so grateful to be able to reflect, right? I still have those moments.
Yeah, we're not perfect.
What?
No way.
Just kidding.
It's a burst your bubble.
It's been bursted.
Stop thinking, start doing moment. I'm going to share about an event that happened this week, and we started our mindfulness curriculum. We rolled that out this week, and we have like a little video with a question that goes along with it that's getting pushed out to different subjects through both schools. So amazingly going to
1,000 human
I literally
beings.
just wrote that down.
1,000.
1,000
Yes.
souls a day are receiving this work in just, you know, a couple minute bites. But
Yep, a bit of mindfulness, a bit of social emotional learning, a bit of love. Aw.
Yeah.
A bit of love, knowing that they are loved and received and seen.
Yeah. So
That
just
just
celebrating
filled me
that.
up so much.
Yeah, just celebrating that.
It's so exciting.
We received an email from another educator communicating some struggles with it, and I took it very personally because this is something so near and dear to my heart. And this was a true test of detachment, because when I first read the email, I was very triggered and upset and hurt and, just a lot of emotions. And I felt them. I leaned into them and I felt them, and I knew that I wanted to come up with a response, but I had to step away from the emotion of it and realize what was the impact that I wanted to have with my words responding. And in my email back, I just appreciated their support in seeing the value in what we are doing, and just acknowledging that we will, continue to work on solutions. And it was a big lesson for me, because one, stepping away and viewing this email, what was their intention, right? Was their intention for me to feel like it was a slap in the face, or was that my imagined, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. The story you told
the
yourself.
story that I told myself, where they were just trying to communicate, and just letting that be something that I step back from and detach from, and not, again, take it personally. And then pausing to think about, when I respond, what is it that I want this person to feel walking away from my words? And, as this curriculum is unfolding, I just want the message behind it to just be, of thanks and of gratitude to, be working on this and seeing the importance and having a role in spreading this valuable work to our students. So just letting that be the message that, I left back. And that being a really powerful moment, because in the past that probably would have deterred me to be like, okay, we can't handle this. About face, let's get out of here. Tell them it's canceled. This is scary. But it's it's okay that it's scary. If you want to get bigger and do more things, you're going to have more of these conversations as well. So get used to them, start detaching, and just think about, when you respond, what is your impact that you are sending back into the world?
Yeah. What emotions are you willing to sit uncomfortably with, because you know what's best for you and for
and that
who
you don't
want to
continue the cycle of sending back out if it's not, be aware of that. Be aware of, you get to choose if you're a hurt person hurting people, or if you're a healed person healing people.
That was beautiful, Alicia.
Yeah, I love that you...
It's so resonating.
And you served as a model for both of us, because it's not that you were quiet in your feelings of frustration. You shared them with us. You shared them with yourself, and you paused and thought and took a break and went back to the email and then responded with your truth. And it was beautiful. I think the most because it wasn't automatic, right? And I think sometimes as people, we want these automatic things, so it's out of our hands. And it was work, and it was beautiful, and it was modeling really of, okay, that impact, regardless of their intention, sucked, but I know my intention, and I know how I want my impact to go, so I'm going to do everything to set it up that way. And it was such a beautiful model.
Really embodying the goal of what we're trying to teach the kids, and hope that these are the skills that the kids are internalizing as well. So even though they don't know that part of it, right, you do, and you can continue that trust to bring it and show it to them.
I love that.
We love that.
I love you.
And love that so much.
Love.
I want to go next, if that's all right.
Of course.
All right, so that kind of goes into, again, what I was going to say of, we've been talking about intention and impact, a lot focused around how we interact with others, and something that has been very loud in my life over the last week or so has been guess this year, but the intention and impact of my choices and for myself, specifically thinking about like daily habits, certain either daily habits or when certain situations come up that my intention, my brain goes into, like you said earlier, defense mode, but defense for protection, to protect me from failure, from being hurt, from, you know, showing up and being let down and not having the right answer, and, you know, like all of those kind of things where so much of the story I've been telling myself and the story I've allowed my brain to tell myself is that the choices that I've been making, the intention is to keep me safe. And the impact of that has been showing up in me having a very strong sense of being fearful, of the unknown, of the uncomfortable, of being very unsettled when things change, when plans change. It's fueled my procrastination, putting the pro in procrastination. You know, it's the impact has been me saying no to myself and to all these opportunities that I've maybe always dreamt of or wanted, but never felt like they were for me, because my brain said, if you do that, you know, you could fail, so why bother, right? Very fatalistic. And all of that has broken my self-trust and really negatively impact and decreased any sense of self-trust. And that is something that I have been able to do a lot of work around recently, and I'm completely flipped it on its head. I have said yes to so many opportunities for me with that fear, like we said the other day, one other episode of, you know, having fear in the front seat, like it's going to be present anyway, but so you're just going to sit in the driveway, or are you going to go on this road trip and experience all the beauty that life has to offer? And that is where that's where I started to really anchor in to my own intention and impact, and then be able to observe it in others. Was, you know, am I shutting myself off to protect myself? Am I saying no to this because that's what's best for me? Or am I saying no to this because I'm scared? Or am I saying no to this because I might fail and I can't be a failure? And that changed when I decided to show up and do the work. And I've continued to show up and do the work, because it doesn't just go away overnight. It doesn't just happen. Never.
It's for the rest of your life.
And that's going to be uncomfortable. But the discomfort gets smaller and shorter and less frequent, and the joy and the authenticity and the magic that life can be, again, it's better than I've ever dreamt of. And I see it so clearly, and I feel it, and I embody it so much, and I've been able to heal internally for myself and rebuild that trust, and continue to reflect on it and say, okay, you know, again, what's my intention? Am I trying to control and hold on to it, to control my life because this is what I'm forcing myself into the box, all of the above? Or, you know, is my intention to show up and do the things that I'm so passionate about and want to make the changes that we know are possible, that are necessary, and so on and so on. And so I feel like that's been a big shift for me.
So you are stepping out of the thinking zone
and
moving into the doing
so. Yes, that I'm like, all right,
well,
so
I'm so
stop
proud
thinking
of
about
you.
it, start doing it. All right, thanks.
And what a beautiful reflection to have the ability to see it in that way, and
I had to make the time and make the energy to do it.
And what you're what you, now sharing this and sharing with whoever you share your practices with, how these are impacting you in a way that is positively benefiting your life, whereas before it was like functioning out of a lack, right?
Yeah, everything was out of lack, and
Now you see the abundance.
oh my gosh, yeah. And we're
Yay.
talking about the ripple effect earlier, about how like one person's choice is so far removed from the impact that it actually happens, and now how we've been able to turn that into, you know, such a beautiful ripple instead of being so negative and toxic.
Because we could have been.
We have been. We decided to take that step back, to detach.
We chose differently.
And that made all the difference. All right. Last but not least, Miss Mary.
My stop thinking, start doing moment starts with Erin. So we work at the same school, and I am a counselor, and Erin teaches science, and she has a very fun group of friends at the end of the day. And it was going into our dismissal process is tough because at the end of the day, everybody just wants to get out and continue on with their lives outside of the school building. And please jump in at any point in time, Erin. She had a moment at the end of one day where she reacted to her students in a way that she didn't love. There were some classroom expectations that had been set that were consistently not being met, and from an outside perspective it came to a boiling point and everybody had some struggles. Erin had her moments with the students and then took some time and invited me as a counselor to come in and help to facilitate a conversation about what's going on, because we don't want this to continue. I'm not feeling good about this. I recognize that my intention at the end of the day is to be in a space where we are all safe and doing what we need to do and hearing the announcements so we can all get to the place where we go to after school safely and loved and beautiful and calm. And the impact of making sure that got done the other day was one out of, again, in my opinion, please jump in anytime, but was one out of frustration and high emotion and anger and disappointment and, you know, again, frustration in myself and frustration in you. And let's all talk about this as...
And control.
Yeah, and control.
I felt like I had no control.
Yeah, and let's all talk about this as a collective, as a community. So being an adult, witnessing that, and helping to be a part of that conversation. And I don't know if you recognized it, but how we set up our chairs made the whole room a circle.
Yeah.
So there was no head of the conversation. Everybody had a chance to speak. Everybody was encouraged to speak. It was a
conversation amongst equals, not you know, adults and kids, and we're gonna tell you what you did wrong. And even though, you know, I raised my voice and, you know, and I apologize, so that makes it okay. Oh my God, going back to my first story, Mary.
Oh, whoa, yeah.
I apologize, so that's it.
Yeah.
No, I apologize, and I recognize that me raising my voice still impacted you and left you feeling hurt, and I'm here to repair that. Yeah. Holy shit, Mary.
And how fucking cool
Holy
is that?
shit.
You know? So it was a really beautiful invitation for me to be there with you all and help to facilitate a conversation and be an extra pair of hands for when we were writing down agreed upon classroom ideas for how to move forward with all of everyone's wants and needs being met and loved and held. And that was beautiful and awesome. And what that really leads me to is then my moment where a few weeks later, I had a really frustrating interaction with a group of students that I wasn't feeling good about afterwards. There were some boundaries that were tested. There was some really difficult emotions that were brought up. And I reaffirmed my boundaries, as did all of the students in the situation. And everyone left the space with negative emotions, including myself. And everyone left the space, meaning my office. And then I went back to my office and the negative feeling was still there. And I realized that the intention of this conversation that, again, I was having in a group with students and myself was, let's set clear boundaries with each other. Let's determine how we can move forward as two functioning human beings in this collective space of the school that we are in, with respect and love, and knowing it's okay to not always get along, or knowing it's okay to be best friends and everything in between, and knowing that communication is key here to keep the wheel moving forward in a direction where we both and all and the students feel like seen, heard, loved, and valued. So that was my intention, right? Beautiful, great, pat myself on the back. But the impact of getting that out on my end was frustration and hard boundary setting, and then everybody needing to go their separate ways to take space.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not like negatively slapping myself on the wrist for setting those boundaries, because it was needed and that pause was needed.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm really proud of, and I appreciate with both of you so much because of how your stories and situations have modeled things for me, was that I came back and I went to you guys and was like, I don't feel good about like this general situation that occurred. How can I show up and say, okay, this is my intention and I recognize my piece of the impact, and this is what I'm going to do moving forward. So being able to have that conversation, and then right with your trusted people, and then being able to move forward and continue to show up honestly and create those spaces with students and hold those spaces with students, has been something that's just, you know, really helping me be aware that, okay, yes, my intention may be one thing, and I'm a quote unquote adult in a situation, and I might not.
Adults don't have everything figured out.
They never do. It's all a
That's
fucking
okay.
lie. But being aware that, like, yeah, I was the adult in this situation, and Erin, you modeled it so beautifully with that situation with your students, of saying, okay, I'm apologizing and I'm owning my piece and I would like to work together. And that helped me to give myself that language of saying, here is what happened from my perspective, and here's my impact that I'm holding on to, and I'm inviting you to have a conversation with me. And how that's been able to just be a relationship shifter. So
that's true connection, not control.
Yeah.
That's true
It's not
connection.
masquerading.
Yeah.
And manipulation.
Yeah.
It's
And it's
showing up
authentic.
authentically
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
actually having soul-to-soul connection.
And it was difficult, right? It didn't always feel good, and it wasn't supposed to, because the growth felt better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
Stop thinking and start doing it. Stop thinking